What's going on, everybody? This is Travis Witherspoon from Carter Cow Capital, helping you fight for your financial freedom throughout the forex market. This is another night episode of Trade with Travis. Hopefully, everybody's doing very well. Uh, uh, Obviously, we ended up having a very slow day when it came down to movement. There was something that we kind of ended up expecting. I ended up saying that I wasn't going to trade, and I traded a little bit. So, uh, actually, ended up um, finding some profits. End up having a couple losses in certain areas. So. Um, I don't know y'all could hear my son. Um, but um, essentially, today was one of those days where I felt like, obviously, after having a big move that ended up happening yesterday, we wasn't going to end up seeing that much movement, and that's pretty much what ended up happening. So, what I'm going to end up doing is going through and seeing what's actually happening with the overall market. If there's going to end up being an opportunity to possibly be able to do something based off of this movement, or based off of what's going to end up happening tomorrow, because we have a lot of high impact news that's about to happen tomorrow, and then be able to go from there. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm not a CTA, so I'm not going to tell you whether to buy or to sell. What I'm going to do is teach you education, and from that education, you can be able to make your own informed decision. Now, understand that trading involves risk. It involves risk of being able to make money, also involves risk of being able to lose money. So please keep that in mind. And understand that past performance is not indicative of future results, which means that if you end up making money yesterday, it's not promised that you end up making money today. So as we go through and take a look at what ended up happening overall today, we end up having um, President Von der Leer end up speaking for the Eurozone. We end up having the GDP for the New Zealand dollar, or this New Zealand in general, end up being 1.7 and 0.4. Good numbers for them overall. It's actually been a couple down months, and this is the first time that it's back up, so that's a good thing. And then after that, unemployment change is about to happen in the next 27 minutes with the Australian dollar. So we'll see how everything kind of plays out with that. Going into tomorrow, we're going to end up having retail sales in the United States, and what we're actually seeing based off of that. And the reason why I felt like today was going to end up being slow based off of that 1,500 point move that ended up happening previously is that as we end up taking a look at this market, um, there is a high impact news after being high impact news in the middle, between that actual day. So we end up having a big move today. There was really no news for the United States, but tomorrow there will be. That's going to end up being at 8:30. Typically, when you end up having high impact news, you're going to end up seeing that the market's going to end up consolidating anyway. So, with that being said, essentially what ended up happening was that the market slowed down. And that's exactly what ended up happening. The market went erratic in two different positions. We talked about this earlier during our session in the morning. I end up saying that, hey, we'll look to be able to see if this market is going to end up kind of breaking out of a zone or start building up in a zone. And then we can truly be able to know exactly what we're going to end up trading. And that's exactly what ended up happening at this particular point. There was a couple times where the market actually ended up popping to the downside. I actually ended up catching myself in a trade, or I placed myself in a trade when the market actually ended up breaking below 3160. It ended up dropping all the way down. And when I looked at it, I was like, when I ended up looking at it, I seen it was in profit. And I was like, okay, well, this would be a good time for me to just go ahead and go pick up my kids. And just like anything else, market ended up falling down 138 points, popped right back up inside of that movement. And when I seen it, it was back inside of the actual consolidation box. So I exited out of the trade early. So sometimes that happens. It is what it is. You got to make sure that you're always monitoring the chart, so you're going to have a trail stop to place yourself into. But essentially, what ended up happening was today the market stayed in consolidation. We finally ended up having a new resistance that we're going to work off of in our high volume node at this particular point at 31,280. And the support, we can actually kind of move down a little bit, just to kind of see what that actually is going to end up being. Let's do this. Currently, right now, this is the consolidation that we're in on US 30. I do expect that if the market's going to truly be bearish, it's probably going to break below this area right here at 31,060. So that's basically where I end up getting in the first place. Really and truthfully, if you want to end up calling this spot the true consolidation area, you could hypothetically, but you're probably not keeping in granted, or you're probably not taking note that obviously the market has moved to this point, to where it's actually done fill in between, in that area twice and kind of tapped up. So I would say we have to be a little bit more patient when it comes down to this overall movement and kind of trade it just like how we would trade the downside of what ended up happening on September 6th. Um, so really no trade until then. We'll just wait and then kind of go from there based off of that movement. Now, we take a look at what's happening with Nas. Nas, same deal. End up taking a trade. End up taking a trade when the market ended up breaking out the first time, moved the trail stop, and it saved me a little bit. Then after that, fell to the downside and stayed inside of this consolidation. I have a pending order trade that's ready to go at 11,995, going after 12,860. You take a look at that when it comes down to, sorry about that, comes at, take a look at that when it comes down to where we're at on the zone in the 15-minute. You'll start to see that, I'm sorry, on the hour, you'll start to see that we're kind of bumping into this very large consolidation that we end up having before, and what actually started this movement after it ended up having that big, large drop to the downside. Um, so essentially, what I would like to be able to do based off of this movement is be able to get out of this trade before we kind of get into the middle of this consolidation. And then after that, wait until the market truly drops below 11,850 and then have a chance to be able to trade it all the way to the bottom of the consolidation. But until then, there's really nothing else to be able to do on this one. So we're just kind of waiting for this market to be able to break to the downside if it does. Now, to the upside, I ended up taking a trade a little bit earlier when it broke out to the upside as well. My plan was to be able to go from from 12,140 all the way up to 12,250. What ended up happening was the market actually ended up breaking out twice. And when it ended up breaking out, what I ended up noticing was that it started to be able to build out upward channel. And here's the thing that's kind of significant about that. Obviously, I can see that the 1 hour and I can see that the 15 minutes in the sell zone. And it looks like currently right now, either it's going to be an upwards channel or it's going to end up being this breakout and finally a retest of this overall move. If it is a retest, I basically end up placing a 15-minute and kind of seeing if there's going to be a counter trend line break, and then I may be interested in being able to get back in. But if this market starts to truly look and stay on to the downside and keep on falling, then I'm just going to treat it like it's a rising wedge at this point. Now, here's the reason why I kind of feel a little bit more comfortable in saying that it may end up being a rising wedge. If you go back and take a look at every move that we've had before, there's been some consolidation over the course of the last, let's say over the course of the last month. We end up having 2 days ago when this market ended up making that big drop, we end up having a rising wedge right here. You end up taking a look at what's happening right now. We got a little bit of a channel that's actually happening at this particular point. When the market end up dropping, right here, same deal. We end up having another channel that was basically being created, or a rising wedge in certain situations, to where it just dropped and fell again. So I'm thinking that we're probably going to end up seeing somewhat of this same move that has just been happening over and over and over again right before a high impact news. Even more importantly, you think about what ended up happening right here when the market ended up having this upside move over the course of August 25th to August 26th. Jerome Powell ended up speaking on this day, and that's when it moved to the downside. Then after that, the aftermath of that overall move ended up leading to another same type of upward channel to the downside. What's going on, Block Connect? What's going on? I hope everything's going well with you. So essentially, the way that this market has been moving and the way that overall we've just seen it kind of playing itself out. Once it ends up breaking inside of that, low volume node and start being able to make its move, after the move is over with, it's really truly showing that the market is in a channel and then just falling right back down. So because the hours in the sell zone, I'm going to probably end up saying that we're going to see that the market is going to end up making somewhat of the same move. I'll be somewhat correct if I end up seeing that the market kind of does this down, up, and then after that truly falls back down inside of this consolidation. If it falls right back down inside of the consolidation, then after that we can truly see that the market may end up pushing back up to the upside. Man, everything's going well, man. I really will say that. Even though it didn't necessarily have a fully great winning day, it's definitely ended up learning a lot throughout this day and every other day that I'm actually paying attention to. So I like what's going on with this, and hopefully everybody's learning a little bit more why the market's actually making its moves as well with you. So um, only thing that, like I said, if this market breaks this overall upside move, then that may end up giving me cause to be able to say I may look to be able to do this. So um, as long as you live the trading update, that's all that matters. I truly agree with that. I ain't got to the point to where this done been way more of a passion than anything else that I've ever done at this particular point. And that includes coaching. Let's see. All right, so really no move yet until the market breaks the counter trend line break. Now, whether if it breaks the counter trend line break to the upside and basically turns this consolidation actually into past resistance turn future support and then makes this move, or if the market ends up falling down below the channel and then hitting the bottom of this overall move, I would still be looking at being able to say if this market is going to end up pushing to the upside, that will be the two plays that will probably end up happening. Now, if it's going to end up being bearish and falling to the downside and just giving us this big channel move, essentially what will probably end up happening, like what's been happening over the course of the last few times that it's done this, is that the market will make its move in one of those directions, complete this overall pocket area. Then after that, have a sharp fall, and then after that, make its movement from there. So if I'm looking at this, and if we go based off of past history, at least at this particular point, it probably might end up breaking the counter trend line, um, moving up to the upside, completing the move, and then after that, falling after it completes this move. Okay. I know it's a long-winded answer to be able to say I'm not doing anything right now until there's a counter trend line break to be able to happen. But I think overall, that gives you two different types of plays that you can be able to get into at this particular point. Yeah, so there we go. Uh, let's go ahead and take a look at what's happening with XPX 500. XPX 500 is still inside of the consolidation box. We can start to build out this one now and be able to locate what a low volume nodes are going to end up being. Currently, right now, the best movement without necessarily having to fight anybody. Well, we zoom out a little bit more. This is a large high volume node. So quite frankly, that means that I wouldn't necessarily want to do anything unless we can be able to get it, unless we can be able to trade it back up to 39.68 and get out of it a little bit early. Um, based off of that, if I'm going based off of that thought process, 39.68, 39.68. Um, I would say I would wait until the market actually ends up breaking the upside resistance at 39.58 and then go out to 39.68. Now, that's just nothing more than a scalp. And sometimes scalping is not necessarily a bad thing. But if you're going to scalp, then that means that you have to be able to place it right up under where the market makes its counter trend line break, or the last counter trend line break that actually end up happening before the movement actually was made um, to the upside and actually broke. So, with that being said, let me see. Let me take a look at it based off an hour. It might be a little bit higher. Obviously, we're back inside of that block. Do I really want to take that move now? Mm-mm-mm-mm. Okay, long-term trends to the downside. I'm not going to talk about the trade to the upside. Let's get off of that one. I won't even consider that one now, based off of that. There's still a move that's to the downside of 38.50 that we still haven't been able to complete as of yet. Because that is the case, and obviously this is the largest peak that we have to be able to break to the downside. Um, let's look at a sell trade potentially when it comes down to that movement. I go out to the sell trade first before looking at being able to go to the upside. Everybody, give me one quick second. To be real quick. Let's see. All right, so downside trade, what I would look at being able to do. Um, what did my what did my indicator go? What just happened? What just happened? Oh, okay, there we go. We don't have any volume. Oh, there it is. Perfect. So now let's go 15 minute. Okay, so essentially, I'll still have to go back to the daily. No, not the daily. I have to go back to the hour. I'm sorry. I'm trying to just build out this game plan. Okay. All right. I got it now. So game plan would end up being pretty much this. If the market actually ends up taking a short, the market actually ends up falling, I'll look at being able to take a short at 39.20. You can say 39.21. That will actually end up being the lowest portion of it. From there, I would look at being able to get out at 38.50 as one of the first positions of this move. And if the market is truly shown to be truly bearish, you could possibly be able to take a longer term move to the downside, all the way down to 37.85. Yeah, 37.85. Now, stop loss on both of these. If we're going to end up going after this amount of pips, this amount of points on this one, we're going after 71 pips, 71 and 39. We got a 1.83 risk reward factor. I'm actually okay with that, even though it's not above 2. I'd rather it be 1 to 2.3, but my stop loss I end up placing just above 39.57 with the expectation that the market is going to end up breaking out of this area and continuing to keep on moving on to the downside. Because that'll kind of give us a little bit of space and kind of match up with what ended up happening previously. If you don't feel comfortable in being able to say, hey, this market's going to end up. Actually, no, let's take a look at this one more time. When it fell down to this support. So it literally matched up with that consolidation support. Okay, so instead of that trade, we'll go back with this one right here. Okay, that's more the safer one. That will end up being at 39.05, 39.05, taking it down to 38.50 will end up being that play. Um, Now, instead of placing the stop loss at the top of the consolidation, we'll place it just above the overall point of control. That'll make it a risk reward factor of 1 to 5, but a 1 to 1 to 1.5, but it will probably end up giving you a better, safer spot because it ended up breaking just below this previous consolidation, ended up breaking outside of the box. So that means that truly there will not be any buyers, hopefully there to be able to kind of push it back up once it truly decides to be able to break to the downside. Now, same deal that same trade that we talked about being able to take down to 37, I believe. Um, the stop loss on that one you can be able to place above the overall consolidated high or resistance of that movement and feel pretty comfortable with that because that'd be a 1 to 2.2 for the risk reward factor. If you would like to be able to take that trade long term as well. So give you a couple options on that one. I don't know which one I'm going to do as of yet. I know for certain that I'll probably go with the smaller scout one, but obviously we have way more momentum to the downside if the market keeps on moving the way that it is. The only thing that I'm kind of worried about from taking a look at this once again, do I trade algos? Also, do you have a Discord? Yes, I am building a Discord. My Discord is actually going to end up being, I actually end up having it ready by the beginning of next week. So I end up giving everybody information when it comes down to that. And I create my own automation systems. The automation system that I primarily use right now is called the FX Striker. If you're interested in being able to learn a little bit more information when it comes down to that, all you got to do is just send me a private message and being able to go from there. I talk about it all the time. Obviously, anytime that you end up talking about anything for your overall trading systems and everything else that you end up doing, you want to always be able to have some type of you want to be able to have some type of social proof on how well it ends up working. So this is my FX book, and everything that I end up doing for is just trading overall. Essentially, um, to give you an example, we take a look at what's happening with US 30. We was over 100% gain as of yesterday, but I ended up taking a loss earlier today. But essentially, we end up doing. Let's just talk about the last 4 months. 18%, 59%. We end up doing negative 24%, but that was negative 24%, but that was 100% my fault, and 40% currently right now doing this month. Um, so yeah, um, absolutely. If you wanna learn a little bit more about that, just make sure that you just send me a message, and we'll be able to go from there. But overall, done pretty well with that one. I'm going to take a look at DAX. DAX will probably end up being my last one today. So let's talk about what ended up happening with DAX. Essentially, what ended up happening was the same consolidation that I ended up talking about. Broke down to the downside, really broke a counter trend line break. I got into a sale when the market ended up breaking this lower level. I was in it for the first 5 minutes, and then after that, popped right back up. I took profit off of it. Really nothing that I could be able to um, be happy about. But essentially what's happening right now is that getting a counter trend line break that's about to possibly end up happening. If that does happen, then after that, I'll look at being able to adjust that trade and kind of move up the stop loss just a little bit higher. Get into the trade a little bit earlier and may end up giving me a better chance to be able to make something off of it. Take profit at that 12,920. So you may end up getting a chance to be able to make something off of it if that does happen. Stop loss would end up being above the swing high, so we have to adjust that as well. Um, which will end up being about 83 points. If it's a 1-to-1, then I'm not taking it. Yeah, I'm not going to take it if it's a 1-to-1. If I can be able to catch it at a little bit of a higher price, then I would. But if not, if you look and see that the risk reward is a 1-to-1 when you try to look at it, because there's only one true pocket that you can be able to get to safely, which would be at 12,920. I wouldn't take it if that happens. Okay. I'm actually going to end up cutting this one short today. I have to go get the groceries out of my out of my wife's vehicle. I left them in there for a few minutes. Lord knows what's in those. But everyone, thank you for being able to pop in. Obviously, we'll see what's happening tomorrow. Remember the first 15 minutes of that news tomorrow. Make sure that you end up just sitting on the wayside and kind of understanding what's happening with the move. And then after that, once it decides what it's going to end up doing, go ahead and get into the system, let everything else play itself out, and then go from there. Good luck to everybody tomorrow. Like always, plan your trade, trade your plan, plan your trade, trade your plan. Sorry. Everyone, y'all end up having a good one.